Hello and welcome to the Learning Pro Live. My name's Cath Ellis. Today we're talking about why marketers are better at engagement than learning and development. And we've got a brilliant guest, Mike Taylor. Hello.
Hey,
Welcome.
How are you, Cath? Good to see you.
Great to see you too. I adore you, Mike. You're just all over it. I love your how much you share with the community, and your passion in this space. It's
Well, we are going to have a big.
I really appreciate you being here.
Yeah, we're going to have a big love fest tonight because I'm going to give it all right back to you. So this show and all the stuff you've been doing, like I'm just like a sponge. I'm just soaking all this up, and there's not enough hours in the day for me to watch all this stuff. So it's fabulous. So thanks.
Oh, thank you. It's one of those things. The pandemic has been bringing out just a lot of creativity. Lots of people are doing really cool things, and part of it's because I'm locked in and I can't do anything else. But no, a lot of it's just I think it's a really good platform to be able to talk with the likes of yourself. But me and you could talk for hours anyway.
Yes, absolutely.
But it's really good to kind of get different perspectives, see what other people are doing, and just sharing it. We've got quite a few people tuning in. So let us know, guys, where you're tuning in from. I'm sure it's going to be the usual suspects, but if you've got questions for Mike, this is a really interesting topic. We had a good topic last week. I was talking to Mudassir, who's out in Dubai, and we were talking about how to market your courses. But I think this is kind of taking this to a different level as well. We were talking about stealing like an artist. How can we take these ideas? So why don't you introduce yourself to everyone, Mike? I'm pretty sure everyone who's tuning in would know you, but let us know where you're tuning in from.
Yeah, so I am a learning consultant. I am at some point or other, I've probably anything that's touched on training or learning from upfront instructional design stuff all the way through design and develop and deliver facilitation. Like I've been really lucky to have a lot of experience across that whole sort of A to Z spectrum. So I'm just really energized by the whole process of learning. Even when I was a kid in school, I was probably the only one who wasn't trying to get out because, I'm learning stuff, and we travel as a family, and, my kids know, hey, there's a historical marker. You want to go over and read that so you can learn about stuff. So just really, I think it's such a cool field to work in because there's so many amazing people like you and a lot of the people you talk to all the time, like you were just sharing all the stuff that they do and helping others. And I don't think there's a whole lot of fields that are as open and sharing like that. And so, there's a lot of days, I just kind of shake my head and grin, like, and I'm sure you have this as well. Like I get to go to work a lot of days instead of I have to go to work. And that's a pretty cool thing that's worth a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. I think took me a long time to really work out which direction I was going, because I started out in hospitality. I actually wanted to be a chef. My father was a chef, and ended up, it's really funny because I was a kid and I always thought he was a chef, but he was actually a university lecturer who taught, he taught how to do food production, I always thought he was a chef. And then growing up, I was like, I want to be a chef. But actually, it's interesting how I've gone into teaching, training, just like he did. So my direction went in hospitality, and I actually very quickly got put on a front desk. They said, well, you're not cooking anymore. We're putting you on the front desk. And I was like, oh, I hate people. I'm not going on the front desk,
I can't imagine that.
Yeah. But, it's what it comes down to is, I think it's just creativity. You know, I always was a lot more practical than theoretical, and that I actually didn't find learning easy in school. I struggled a lot. So I find now I put that hat on, and I always think about, is this going to be a good learning experience? You know, because I always struggled with it. So yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? How you reflect a little bit on being a kid, and you know how that's.
Yeah, I think I'm still a kid. My wife would probably agree if she heard that. But it's always fascinating to hear people's paths, because it's very rare. I think I know one person I've ever met that said, as they were growing up, they went to school for this, they did this, like it was that straight line. You know, one person ever of all the people I've ever talked to, and there's always, you know, some left-hand turn that's unexpected that gets them into the field. And so it's always nice to hear those stories. And I think you touched on two things that are common for people who do it pretty well. And, you know, that was the practical piece and the empathy for what's the experience like. So I think those two things, if you sort of keep those in front of your thinking process, that you're probably going to do pretty well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm the same, you know, I sometimes there's the odd occasion that I'm like, oh, I hate this, you know, but it's probably because I'm being forced to implement something that I don't believe in, you know.
Yeah.
And that's always hard. But you do your best to convince a client, and if they want it, there's not much that you can do other than say, well, this is going to impact the effectiveness of this, but you're the paying client. So but that's a few and far between. I have to say, I love, like, it's not work. I love this, you know.
Yeah.
So it's a good position to be in. And you know, even the work with the conference and things like that, it was a lot of work, but you know, it was great working with you know, the likes of yourself and everyone, you know.
It was really fantastic. I'm still telling people about that. So I hope you're doing it again next year, because I'm telling people you got to see this. You got to see what they're doing. It's amazing.
Yeah, good, really good fun. We've got a couple of comments here. We've got someone tuning in from Melbourne, and well, now you're cooking mean e-learnings. And that's too funny. But we're going to talk about, you know, marketers and what they're doing. And you actually you've done a session before on this, and I know that this is something that you're very, very passionate about. So why don't you talk, just introduce this a little bit?
Yeah, so I have kind of an opener when I sort of talk about this stuff, and I sort of make the comparison, like if you went to a training department, or a typical training department, and you have this problem, right? Like, we need to sell more hamburgers. You probably get some result of a list of bullet points and some facts and figures and stuff like that, really, you know, and that's logical thinking. And then I sort of send it, okay, we'll have the same problem, the same challenge, we send to a marketing department, and you get back something that's so drastically different, and it's bright and it's colorful and it's simple and it's visual and it's tapping into emotions, and it's like it's night and day, the approaches. And if you think about it, what L&D departments or L&D teams are doing, we've got the same goals as marketers, right? Like, we've got to get somebody's attention. That's the first thing. And then we have to use that attention, once we get it, to have some sort of behavior change, to do something, to buy something, whatever it is. And so really the biggest goals of both of those teams are the same, but we come at it in general from just such opposite directions. And so I think that I've not had really anybody ever sort of argue that fact. So I think it's pretty clear. And then, you know, as we sort of dig into it and unpack it, well, you know, why is that? And I think there's a lot of things that we as a field should be stealing from marketing. You know, there's some things they could steal from us as well, but I think, you know, they just do, and they've got a different skill set a lot of times, right? They're sitting in a different place, and there's a lot of factors that go into that. But yeah, so there's a lot of value to gained from sort of peeking over their shoulders and seeing what they're doing, and even some of the tools they're using, right? I'm a big fan of tools like MailChimp and the email platforms. You can do some really nice things in a learning context. So tons and tons of space to explore in the marketing.
Absolutely. I think for some of us, like I think you're very similar. You share a lot of new tools that are out there. I kind of do it as well, but not as much as you, because you've got a resource that a lot of people follow and subscribe because they know that your newsletter is focused on providing them with all these new tools that they can use, and of course your LinkedIn feed, etc. But I'm one of these that I curate a lot of tools and try tools, and the first thing as a learning designer that I do is I go, how could I use this? And I think naturally it's easy for me I'll put it on a list, I'll put it on my to-do list, and I'll try and build something, and I've kind of got it there. That if I have a client who comes with a solution, that I'm not just offering them a standard e-learning course. I can say, well, there's loads of ways we can do this. We could do an Alexa skill. We could do a website. We could, it's really working out what you're trying to achieve and what's going to be the best thing for that end user to get that content. So I always have loads of examples there, but for those who aren't the same and aren't, some people don't have time, some people aren't motivated to do it. Is there a certain thing, I'm looking here and Cara North is absolutely distracting me. You can see all these comments. Right?
She never sleeps. I swear she never sleeps. She plugs sleeps in and recharges. Yeah.
She called you a lizard brain before. Mike Taylor.
I think she's comparing me to a lizard. I don't know how I turn out in that, the result of that.
I love you, Cara. Keep them coming. But for those who aren't, and I hear it a lot from people, and they say, she says, I'm getting ready to unplug tonight, rendering some video. Too funny. For those who aren't kind of as motivated, I mean, is that something that you do? I know you curate a lot of different tools. Do you play around with them? Do you have them in a tool bag so that you can bring them into, I know you do a lot of similar things than me, but you do a lot of consultation, things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it starts with, I think everybody's natural perspective is, can I use this? Can I get some value out of it? Can I get some benefit from it? Right. So that's always, I think, one of the primary lenses. At some point, gosh, however many years ago, it's been too many to count now, I sort of had this realization, well, if I think this might be helpful, there's probably a lot of other people who might also think it's helpful. So even if it's something I check out and say, oh, this doesn't work for me, but maybe there's a lot of other people that are in similar roles that it could work for them. So, it's easy to share things. I read a lot, I read every morning before the family's up and that sort of stuff. And, I've kind of evolved a system that's now I feel like it's pretty efficient. So, I'm covering a lot of territory as far as what I'm able to scan and skim, and you find something and then you dive deeper. And then, I've got a system where I'm saving things for myself, either whether it's for the newsletter or, it's a separate list for things that I want to go and spend time and dig in and try for myself. I feel like I feel like I never get to that list fast enough because I see things over there I want to get to, and I'm fighting to get the real stuff, and then the paying work to get over to the, okay, but it's there, and when the time comes, you have that, you don't have to search for something. So you've always got something on reserve to try or whatever. And then over time, even if you're only trying, one or two things every so often, little small additions over time, and you've got a pretty nice tool set of all of these options, right?
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things I always come back to of, you don't have to build, wherever you are, you don't have to make this amazing leap forward and do this amazing thing overnight. Like, just make one thing better.
That's
and
right.
then you get that down, and and then over time, right? Small steps over time, and you have something pretty impressive and amazing. And it's not so overwhelming that way.
Yeah.
And so that's what I would try to tell people is, right? Just what's the next thing? If you're building courses, right? Like, just change the default settings. That's your first step. And then, and then you do that, and then, okay, I've got that. And then what's the next step? And you just keep going forward. Slow and steady wins the race, I think.
That's right. I mean, it's things like, I did a really interesting session with Simon Bertoli the other day, and he did a drip fed induction campaign, right?
Yeah.
Now, I thought that was brilliant. And of course, I've seen the concept before, but I've never really seen the behind the scenes working, and he was so generous. He went through his whole process, how they mapped it out and how they did it and all the different tools that they used. And it was brilliant. And I think I'm sure that the way that Simon went around doing something like that was to sit with his stakeholder and basically probably show them videos on YouTube about MailChimp and how these, how basically you can use MailChimp to send, just like marketing, send out notifications. So if I apply for, or if I try a new tool, let's say it's VoiceFlow, I know that that's not, they try and make it personal, but I know it's not a personal email that someone writes, hey, right. Cath, great job. You've made your first thing. They have integrated that with Zapier that makes it feel like a personalized experience. And that's great, but we can do that for learning, So he would have had to have taken those marketing cues, just like you're suggesting. He's maybe gone to YouTube. He's gone, hey, can I show you some examples of how the industry's doing it? He maybe has shown a campaign that he's received and gone, we can do this. And I love that. And I think it's really as easy as that. It's as easy as, but it's being aware and keeping your eyes open. When we look at Instagram and seeing campaigns and go, that's cool what they've done. How great would that be if we rolled that out within the business? And it's not always learning as well. It's just passing on information to within the workplace.
Yeah. So, one of the things that is easy to do with things like MailChimp or MailerLite or whatever platform you choose is, people for years have talked about this whole concept of adaptive learning, and those platforms, right? Like, you can tie it to things that the learners are doing. So if they enroll in a course, you can start a campaign. If they finish a course, you can start a campaign, or you can do the campaign and then send them to the course. Like, there's all this stuff that you can do, and Zapier is a fabulous tool to connect a lot of these things. But even within just the marketing email platform, if they register for something, maybe that's the trigger that kicks them off on a path. But then you can send them down different paths based on, did they click a button? Did they open the message? Did they not open the message? And so then you can, based on what they do or don't do, you're specifying unique content based on all those actions. And once you sort of learn a couple simple fundamentals, like, it's easy to set up. Like, the hardest part is mapping out the flow in a flow chart, and then you can build it. And there's just so like, the possibilities are endless. You could even do, entire courses in an email drip. There's a lot of those out there too. So lots of possibilities if you, like you say, you just look around. And if you're looking for ideas, like, you'll find them everywhere. You just have to be looking for them.
That's right. Would you say that the key thing that marketing does different or better, obviously they've got the talent, they've got the graphical graphic design. Would you say it's the bigger picture planning? I think what marketing does very well is, or certainly what I understand, or I've even got a designer who works at Coability, our other company, and she plans everything. So she's got kind of a year calendar. She's got, okay, what are the big events coming up, or international disability days, and she's working around, okay, how can I curate content? And it's working on a very, very big picture. I sometimes don't think we do that very well. I think I think it's a last minute thought when we do things. And I think certainly what I was saying with Mudasir, when we were talking about marketing our courses, is we can be a lot more strategic, that when we sit down with that client, that's actually one of the initial conversations that we're having as well. It's not just about what's the end solution. It's talking about, okay, what's the plan of action? How are you going to market this? How are you going to get people excited about this? And then once we start seeing behavior change come through, what are we going to do after that? It's kind of thinking.
Yeah, I think that is not always our fault. Like, a lot of times nobody calls us until, the project's almost done. Oh yeah, we got to do training, and it's just tacked on at the end, which sort of boxes you in a lot of times. Yeah. It's not always our fault. Although I think, there is a fair amount of thinking of, I just got to build the course. And all I have is a eLearning hammer. So everything looks like an eLearning nail sort of thing. And, but I think you're right. Like, even that idea of having a broader content strategy, right? Like, we have access, especially today, we have access to so many different channels, social networks and email and courses and web and intranets. And we have all of these posters and print materials and, regular mail, that I don't think there's a lot of L&D or training teams that take that broader scope or that broader perspective and think, okay, well, this particular topic or this particular goal fits best in this channel, or that campaign thinking where I'm going to put in a bunch of different channels and there's a cohesive thread throughout all of that, right? Like, so you would ask somebody if McDonald's would ever run just a single commercial, and then expect something to happen, right? Like, nobody would think that. But a lot of times we think that with a training course, right? They'll do it, they'll learn it, they'll magically do it. Human brains don't work that way. Humans don't operate that way.
Yeah. It's really interesting. I worked. It's making me think a little bit about a place that I worked, that we had a lot of modules, and I felt that they were very repetitive. We were saying the same thing over and over again. Certainly things like, how to manage risk. That's something that comes up so many times. And I suggested, can we get an Excel spreadsheet? And I know it's a bit boring, but can we actually go through every single module, and can we just talk? Can we identify what we've covered and kind of map our whole curriculum? And when we did that, we found that we were saying things over and over and over again, and they were all being said in a very different way. So there wasn't a consistent message, even within eLearning. And that's what we try and sell, eLearning. And it's it was then the conversation, well, how can we take this content, and probably a bit like marketing, and we're talking about micro learning and things like that. How can we maybe take some of this out, and where this message is needed again, scaffold it in different ways, in different formats, whether it's posters or this or that. And it's really, I feel like that is a very similar way that marketing works as well. I think they scaffold their content, and they use all these different delivery methods that just really appeal to people.
They're really fantastic at repurposing, right? Like, don't reinvent the wheel. So, really good marketers, they'll take a webinar and they'll take that and they'll convert that into like 127 different pieces of content in different places. And, they'll put the slides on SlideShare, and there'll be audiograms on here, and and then there'll be tweets, and they'll take snippets, and they'll take quotes. And it's really that work smarter, right? Like, don't make 127 pieces, right?
Yeah.
So, and I think e-learning is a good candidate. Like, compliance, everybody does compliance training. Like, one of the, I think, most obvious candidates is whatever compliance training you have, take bits and pieces of it out of the training. You've already got it. You've got graphics, you've got audio, you've got text, and drip it out to people across the year, right? Like, send them a weekly or monthly or whatever cadence to support what they're doing. Because, I don't mind to catch a 2-minute snippet of something. I can do that. I hate to stick through the 60-minute painful, course I've got to do every year. And if it's the same every year, let them test out. If they know it, they know it, right? Like, don't force people to go. It's kind of like the Hippocratic Oath for doctors, right? Like, do no harm. I think that we should have that sort of similar mindset.
Yeah, I absolutely think so. And I'd even say, I have this conversation a little bit and I have a lot more influence with the business that I own with Janine, this disability business that we own, because obviously we're owners, and I can kind of influence and say, well, I'd like this to be done. But even when we have conversations about content, I talk about how can we actually repurpose this for our clients as well. It's so important it's not just important for our staff to understand how we work, and we work safe and ethically and things like that. How can we use something that we can have that's public facing as well, that our clients can see what we're doing? And I think that's forgotten. And I think that's something that marketing do really well. Because if a marketing department, and that most of the time marketing focuses on that client focus, right? But I think that's the most important thing, because if these companies are making adverts that says something out to the public, then it's very likely that that's the behavior that's happening within the business as well.
It's funny that so here we're in the midst of this crazy campaign chaos. And I've thought this for a while now, and I think it more so now more than ever. Like, I think part of our challenges here, our government has a marketing problem, because nobody knows how much stuff the government actually does that's valuable, from the environment to, protecting nuclear missiles, whatever it is, keeping roads in good shape and school and like, most people don't know 98% of what the government does. And in some sense, it's a marketing problem, right? Because all they do is, and so, I mean, there's a lot other problems as well. I'm not saying that's the only thing, but I think it's part of it that is leading down that path. And so yeah, I absolutely agree. And I think you're 100% right.
Well, it's like, without getting too political,
we're going to touch the third rail here.
It's like, you've got a CEO, right? So at the moment in the United States, you've got a CEO who's saying, blah, blah, blah. Yes, this is what we're going to do, repeal and replace. We'll do it in one day, and the staff are like, what? It doesn't work that way,
But I will tell you, I'll tell you. So this is another thing, and whether it doesn't matter which party you favor or whatever, but I'll tell you, Republicans are so much better than Democrats at framing what they're talking about, and they put it in plain English, and they're really good at it. The way the words they use, just the emotions that it naturally inherently evokes. Recently the Democrat thing, they came out with like defund the police, and that's totally negative and is absolutely, from the title, not what they were talking about. It's terrible framing. It's awful. You're fighting an uphill battle. So if you just look at messaging from the two, one is so much clearer and succinct and, touching the right emotions than other. And it just drives me crazy when I hear things from both sides. And because nobody, I won't say nobody, the vast majority of people don't ever look beyond the tweet or the headline, and it carries a lot of weight, carries more weight than it should. But that's another thing too, right? Like the context and the messaging and the framing of it. And so that's a political example, but that applies in no matter what field you're looking at, and learning as well.
Yeah, and I think what we're trying to say, guys, without being too political, is that the message from the top should be the same as the message from the bottom, right? The message should be clear, what we're trying to achieve. And that is what marketing does very, very well. A lot of the time, marketing is... Yeah, it's really interesting. I feel like sometimes marketing is coming from the top down. Am I wrong? Is it coming from the top down, and then learning isn't always? Is it from the bottom up?
I think either one can go in either direction. I think some of the best learning comes from the bottom up. So the people who are doing the job every day, they're the ones that know the details of things that work and don't work. So which I think is important for us as designers to incorporate those people. So give them a communication channel, give them a way. And oftentimes you think of, so Articulate, I used to work for Articulate in the community. And one of their big successes is they'll connect users with other users and let them help each other. It's such a brilliant, for a lot of reasons, people get the help they need to facilitate that. But think of that in terms of marketing. I saw some stat that 5% of people, they buy things from the first people that help them. Yeah. And there's a massive amount of people who are getting help in that community. And they don't care if you use their software or not. We'll still help you. We'll help you do whatever. And it's kind of maybe not intuitive, but I'm confident that sells more software for them, because if you're a Captivate user, that there's just not an equivalent. It doesn't exist, or any other software. So it's super, super smart to just help people, whether you're a marketer or you're in learning or whatever else, wherever you sit.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you think about, what we're doing at the moment with these tools like Yammer and Teams and Currents, or whether you've got the Facebook equivalent, or even using Facebook, depending on the size of your business, that is where a lot of people are doing their learning every day. The learning management system, the e-learning side, is really where we need to track. And I don't want to belittle it, because it's my bread and butter. It's what I do every day. But I am conscious that we don't learn all that much from e-learning. We're learning so much more from these communities. For example, what we're doing now. can put hand on heart and say, my bachelor's degree, my master's degree was great, but I've learned more on YouTube than I did. You know, I understand the theory quite well. You know, we don't have conversations and have, and certainly it's not my style to have conversations and drop names of theorists. You know, I'm sure there is theory behind things, but you know, I'd rather talk practically how we can do these things. And yeah, I think that's the same for these communities.
I think I'm like you in the sense that I'm curious to go and find this stuff out and have these conversations. Not everybody is of that same mindset. You know, I've talked to people and, you know, have you heard of this person, or have you heard? Like, no, I never heard of that person. Like, how is that possible? Like, you do this type of work and you don't know whoever, Kathy Moore, or Cath Ellis, or all these people, whoever it is, right? Like, you have to be curious. And the other thing that's happening now, right? Like, you've probably seen the numbers where the shelf life of whatever you know now, the shelf life of knowledge is changing so fast. So, you know, you used to be able to go to college and have a whole career and you'd be pretty good with what you basically learned in college. Well, you can't do that anymore, right? No. Like 5 years and stuff is changing over so fast. You have to keep learning. And, you know, that's one thing I would be petrified of if I wasn't learning stuff. Like, I'm falling so far behind. Like, why would it, you know, I'm going to get replaced by a robot or something if I'm not keeping up, because, you know, at some point, you know, anybody can input data and, you know, type things in and put pictures on a screen or something like that. If that's, you know, if you're not keeping up with the latest and the technology and all the things, even the theory, right? Like, why do I put things the way I do? I don't care if you know the name of it, but, you know, you should validate what you're doing in some senses effective and sort of proven. So I think, you know, being curious and just always trying to do that, because with the rate of change that everything is going at today, like, you almost can't afford not to.
Yeah. And I suppose I should explain, when I was talking a little bit about e-learning and not learning that much, I suppose what I'm trying to say is, as a learning experience designer, I focus on building experiences, something that's more than that. Because if I certainly look at some tools that are being advertised out there, and they're so generic. There's no thought behind it. It's just add a picture, add text, you know, do a drag and drop. And I go, why? This is just, it's not helping someone. You know, if I work at Macy's and I'm, you know, I'm working in the jean department of Macy's, and they say to me, Radio, so I need you to go over and work in this area. You know, I've never worked over there. You know, I know companies here in Australia, for example, Cotton On, that have models that are pretty much like a whole toolkit of mini resources that if their staff are asked to go and do something different, they can learn about it very, very quickly. They can get up to speed, you know, and I feel like a lot of the content that we're developing is a one-time thing. It's just a, you know, instead of it being a reference kit, it's like I'm going to give you the tools for everything in the business, that if you need to go and search for it, there's something that's there that you can get up to speed on it. And I think that's, like, LinkedIn, for example, is so amazing. Yeah, I try and remember when I see something. That's why I save a lot of your stuff. But if I see something, I use Notion. So I have a little bookmark bar, and I go, yep, that's going to go into my links. And then I've got my links filtered. It's actually like a crazy mind map, you know, but I've got all my links and everything, you know. So if I need to find something, but then LinkedIn and these social tools, if I need to find something, I pretty much know that I can type that term in, or I can go to Google. I had to look for something the other day, and it was so random. It was like a video of a child. It was a specific video, and it was a video of a child hearing for the first time. But I was able to go to Google and type all the things that I remembered from the video, like child, upset, baby, mother. And even though I have seen hundreds of these types of videos, I was able to find it just from using keywords. And I feel like that's where our learning is lost a little bit, you know.
And I think
I've gone on a bit of a tangent. Sorry.
No. I think there's two things in there. I don't know that that's learning as much as our organizations. So I've been in a lot of places where, oh, we have this great, amazing SharePoint, but it's all locked down and nobody but, the three of you can access it. So it sort of defeats the purpose. And then the other thing I think is, right, like there's this continuum of, what makes sense to be an e-learning, because there are scenarios where it's perfectly fine and perfectly appropriate. Not always, but there's a place where that lives. But then there's communications, and then there's resources, and then there's performance support, right? And I think if you're only looking at one sliver of this, you're missing out, and you're certainly not being efficient at whatever your goals are. But I think we have to expand our view. At least somebody in that group that's doing learning has got to have the broader perspective of, no, this isn't a course. Just show them where to get the information and they can handle it. They don't need to be lectured to or whatever the case may be. So it's the two things. And I think it's a combination of the organizational politics or structure not being open to sharing. In my experience in places I've been at, it feels like the bigger the organizations, the less open they are to sharing sometimes. Right. Like they think everything is private, and it's, I've been in places where, look, I'm just doing some training on Microsoft Office. This is not private. Can we unlock it? Well, no, somebody might see it from whatever. It's like, well, so what? Who cares?
I know.
So, I think we've got a couple of things, we're sort of swimming upstream against a couple of factors like that. But ourselves, we've got to open up our perspective and look at, is it a course? Is it a resource? Is it performance support? Right? Like we can build apps now. You could use Glide or something and put together a heck of a performance support app in an afternoon.
Yeah.
Right. So there's no technical barrier and no reason that we shouldn't be looking to do all those kind of things, I don't think.
Let me ask you a question, because this is something that has always been very difficult for me personally. I'd love to know your thought on it. I've always been very I've been actually, if you ask someone who knew me when I wasn't working for myself, they'd probably say she was a pain in the ass, but it was in a good way, right?
Yeah.
And it's because I was always the little innovative bunny that would be going, I've seen this thing and it's so cool and we should use this. And, and I think a lot of IDs are like this, but I think L&D, the overall branching department, they're like, no, you're just an instructional designer. You just do your thing. I think that a lot of L&D departments don't see the value in the innovation that comes from a lot of learning designers. And I suppose it doesn't just need to be learning designers. It could be anyone within L&D. I think actually there's an old school mentality in L&D. Maybe I'm wrong. I'd love your thought on it. But I think that they should be a bit more open to, like you said, trying new ideas, but certainly encouraging these tools to flow through.
Yeah. Yep. I agree. I think maybe it's starting to change. Maybe the old people like me are sort of just starting to fade out, and the young people are coming in like you, trying to do all these really cool things. But
please, I think that we're the same age, Mike.
Not even close. Not even close. Trust me, not even close. So, and I've got another birthday coming up next month, so I'm going to be another year ahead of you. So, but I've definitely seen that, and I've had conversations, that it just drives me crazy. Well, people tell me, people that work in this field, well, I don't have time to learn all this stuff. It's like, well, how do you, if you don't have time to do it, how do you expect the people that you're trying to serve are going to do it, right? And especially, like, I always come back, like, you wouldn't, if you were going in to have surgery on, on your body or whatever, you wouldn't want a surgeon who hasn't learned anything in 20 years. That's crazy. So, why would you think it's okay in any profession? Like, why, if you can't keep up, or you don't want to keep up, or whatever the reason is with the current thinking and where the industry is, then why should we consider you to be a professional, right?
Yeah. It's been that. It's really interesting. I worked for a big government department, and I was I'd been in training already for 10 years, and I was good at what I did, but I didn't have a formal qualification. And this chap who was on the brink of retirement, right, 65 years old, literally was retiring that year. There was a project that came through, and he was my peer. He wasn't even my boss. And he said, in front of everybody, no, I don't think Cath should do that because she doesn't have a formal qualification. And I was like,
no. That has nothing to do with anything.
And it made me so paranoid. And I went off and I did my bachelor's, and it was an advanced one because it was for people in the industry without a qualification. So it was kind of, some of it was RPL'd. I came out of it and I was like, well, that did nothing for me other than give me some theorist names, and it actually made me think a little bit about him. And I think about him a lot now because I go, I should have turned around to him and said, but you did your degree 30 years ago. So what were you taught that is relevant now? At least I'm keeping up to date with currency, and I know what's going on there, and I'm evolving and changing, and, so I think that right now it's about, I bought a course the other day. It was $100, and it was talking about TikTok, right? And how TikTok is the future, and, and it's something that I wasn't 100% into. I kind of had my own thoughts on TikTok, but when you see the Gary Vander, I'm trying to remember, let's just say Gary V,
yep.
Smashing it every day on TikTok, and it's what he's doing. He's educating people, so
right.
And I was like, okay, well, again, it's just learning new things, And
it's not that I'm convinced TikTok's not going to be the end all and be all, just like it wasn't for Periscope or, whatever the other dozens of things that have come and gone. But you can always learn something from all of them, right?
Yeah.
And even some of them have really short, you get 30 seconds or 2 minutes or whatever it is. I think that's another thing that marketers actually benefit from, are those constraints. So, I ask people a lot of times, like, what is it from marketing that you wish you could steal? And one of my favorite answers that I ever got was, I wish I could steal their efficiency of the messaging. And so really good marketers can say more in a 30-second commercial than, hour-long training courses, right? Because they're just so impactful. And and those constraints sometimes sort of force them to be more creative and to do these things because they know that's all you get, right? And advertising is expensive and all those things. So sometimes those constraints can actually be a good thing, I think.
Well, think about how many times we write a sentence and then go, well, that's unnecessary. That's unnecessary. And you've just got this very succinct message once it's been edited down. And I think you're absolutely right, that constraint, because we are so time poor. You know, I don't know about you, but I get anyone who comes into me and wants a course more than 30 minutes, I'm not the right person for you. You know,
and
even
30
that
minutes
is
feels,
long.
Yeah.
Even that is like
forever.
what a 2-hour course used to be.
Yeah.
You know, it's now about, God, people have no time, and you're going to sit and you're going to make them do this course for what purpose? You know? So yeah, you're absolutely right. It's something that we as an industry really need to work much better on. I mean, even my videos now, you know, I'm doing these videos, I'm trying to every day at the moment, but they're an hour, and I'm like, people aren't going to have the time to go through this. But at some point I'll slow down, and there will be a catalog of things that people can do, and at least they're rich conversations. So, but yeah, it's about making it so much.
I think the thing that, if you boil it down to the essence, they're really streamlining, right? Like streamline everything. And then while you're doing that, you've got to touch some sort of emotion. So it's curiosity or intrigue or humor or something, because I mean, everybody knows, like, we get thousands, tens of thousands of messages, and we're just bombarded with it constantly. So something has to be different. It's got to strike that nerve of some type of emotion for us to even pay attention. And, you know, if you're opening up with, you know, in this course, your objectives are blah, 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 like, I'm done already. Like, I'm not even going to see the rest, or I might watch it, but I'm not going to retain it because I don't care.
Yeah.
And so streamlining and a hook of some sort, I think that's what marketers, if you boil everything down, that's what they really do differently and so much better in general.
Yeah. I just had a thought that I completely forgot, that I was going to add on to that. Continue, Mike, while I think about what it was I was going to say.
That's usually my job, losing track of my thoughts and stuff. But, you know, the other thing that goes hand in hand with streamlining and emotions is visual, right? Like, everything in marketing is so visual. You know, you've never seen a billboard or an advertisement that has bullet points, right? Like, there's a reason for that.
That's right.
So, so
take a lot of cues from these things. Yeah. And we haven't really even been talking about visuals. We've been talking a lot here just about content, you know, how they present content. Yeah. I mean, visuals, I think, is a massive problem in L&D. I think that people don't generally have designers on their team. I sometimes feel like marketing and L&D should become one. But then again, I kind of feel like there has to be an understanding of good learning as well. So the message is clear. But then I think marketing do a very similar process that we do to come to their end solution as well. So it's very hard. But the thing that I was actually going to say was, I feel like L&D is very conservative.
Yeah.
You know those adverts, and I don't know, the UK, for example, where I'm originally from, I think is quite conservative. But sometimes I watch an advert here in Australia and I go, oh my God, I can't believe they just said that, you know. And it's quite, and I think sometimes I remember, you know, times that I've come over for DevLearn and whatnot in the States, and I've watched TV adverts, and when it's not one of those adverts on medication that's on every 5 minutes, you know,
right.
farmer adverts. Sometimes there's things that are just like, oh Jesus, you know. And I think that is the capturing of attention that we want from people. We should be taking, you know, you talked about empathy and humor and things like that. It's so important that staff like that one of the last courses that I did, I actually had a question that in the evaluation that said, could you see the point of view from both sides of the person who created it? Was a compliance thing. So could you see the point of view from both sides, from the offender and also from the business's side, because I was trying to get across that a lot of the time, especially with compliance, people aren't trying to break business rules. It's that they haven't been trained enough in the really complex situations that they're put on the spot and they make a decision and unfortunately it was wrong. A lot of them aren't going, oh yeah, I'm going to screw the business right now. Right. We don't, right. Like, yep. Even things like money laundering and things like that. It's yes, there are people with bad intentions, but sometimes as well, you get someone who's in that position that they've made a decision on something that, yeah. And I actually think a lot of it falls back on the training isn't robust enough. It's not giving them difficult enough situations that they can go, oh God, that's 3 hard questions. When we get these horrible questions that are like all of the above, like yeah. All of the above can fuck off, It's just horrible. Give them really difficult challenges and then take them down a branch and show them what's the ramifications of that choice,
Absolutely.
So I think, yeah, that's what I was going to say. I've actually, in big organizations, I've said, this is not real world though. Like when I worked for the police, doing the scenario that's like knock, knock, knock. And an offender opens the door and they go, hi officer, can I help you? The reality is when the police go knocking on an offender's door is what the F do you want? Or what the F do you, that is a lot of it's just, that's the reality of it. And I said, show it. If you've got recruits going through training, show them what is the reality of what's going to happen, or going to a suicide attempt or, yeah. This is for fairly hardcore, but, show what it's like. If you're talking about performance management and, having difficult conversations or how to manage, how to do a performance management interview, show them that staff member crying.
Give them the hardest stuff you can give them.
Show them that staff member going mental, going, I don't agree, or he hates me, or don't do this generic stuff, because in reality, that's not what I think TV and I'm now going into TV, but I think this is what we do so much better outside of L&D. And, I don't know about you, but I watch some things on TV and I go, I'm crying. Adverts, I'm crying, Yeah. And that is what we want to pull from people,
Yeah. And all that easy stuff, like that, they don't need help with that anyway, right? Like I could answer those questions and not have any idea about the details of the job. So yeah, absolutely right. And, there's, it comes back to emotion again, right? Like there's commercials that, or TV shows or whatever it is. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like you, I'm almost crying or whatever it is, watching Queer Eye or whatever it is. And I'm getting emotional about this because, and so you're absolutely right. I think we should put more of that into personality and humor and like all of that stuff. And then the one thing I wanted to sort of circle back to was, when it comes to getting attention, it can't just be all about attention. You've got to have the goods to deliver that comes behind it, right? Because if you do that and you get attention and then don't deliver, you're not going to be able to get the attention later because people know, that's those knuckleheads again. It's just clickbait and there's not going to be any substance. So you have to have both things together.
Yeah. Yeah. This has been a really interesting conversation, Mike.
We could probably go on for days.
It could really. I mean, we have got people tuning in, but I feel like they're just they're either just soaking it up. I mean, I'm inviting you guys, let us know, has this been useful? Have you got any questions for us? I probably should have asked this, you know, an hour ago. Have you got questions for Mike and I? Has this been useful? Do you want anything clarified? I mean, what we'll do is I have put Mike's details down in the description of the video, and you really have to link up with him on LinkedIn. He's fantastic. He shares the best resources. Honestly, my Notion is just absolutely full of your stuff. Ahmad is saying, I'm enjoying listening. Thank you, Ahmad. Appreciate that. Anyone else? If you've got any questions, you've got us here. Okay, so we got note just soaking this up. Thank you, just gold. Wicked. That's what we want to hear. So that's good. I don't know where Cara North went. If you're still here, give us a shout, Cara, because you've been very quiet. I think you've possibly signed off for the evening. But I'd say link up with Mike. He shares the best resources, and if you've got questions in the comments, you'll be able to read the transcript if you're watching this on replay. But you know, just pop your questions in the comments and we'll keep checking back. Yep. So Ahmad says, I've got a quick question. Go for it.
And while he's typing, I have an idea. So you were talking about saving things and putting them where, I think that's another show unto itself, is how people, their sort of personal knowledge management system and processes. I would certainly be in the front row tuning in to see, you know, what people are doing. So another item for your show list.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I have, he's still writing, I think. So I use, are you sure, Ahmad? You can write, you can ask it here if you want, but if you can put it in the comments as well if you want, no problem. But you've got us both and we can answer you real time. Maybe other people will learn from it, or if maybe we won't, maybe we can't answer your question. I use Notion, and I actually am working on selling a kit, a Notion kit. So at the moment I have it set up. It's quite clever. I'll put it in the comments. He says, okay, no problem. No problem. We'll keep an eye out for it, Ahmad. Yeah, I want to sell a kit. So you download one template and it will create a whole, it will basically create a whole CMS. So what I do is I have, everything's based off my jobs. Okay. So if I have a new job that comes in, I can literally click on new and it will open up, you know, who's your client? Is it a new client? Is it an old client? So everything interlinks together with relationships. So it's a bit like Rome, you know, so basically everything's connected to one another. So you can do that. And when you open that new job, so whether it's a new website for someone, new client, I can put in the new details. If it's an old client, I can click it and it'll generate. And then it generates a template with the whole process. So instead of me having to create a whole Trello board, I've done it all in Notion and everything's just there in one place. I can even send invoices out via Notion and things like that. So I'm working on that at the moment. I think for freelancers, they might find that interesting, and also all my knowledge management. So if I find that because I've got it all built as relationships, if I save your resource, I can go in there and I can actually search for, okay, what type of resource is it? And is it related to any other resources? So then I've got a whole knowledge bank of, you know, whether it's all voice things or, yeah, it's totally nerdy. It's going to take a whole episode to show it.
Sounds amazing. Sounds amazing. But I will, like I said, front row, front and center watching that, because that sounds incredible.
Yeah. I mean, it was interesting. Matthew Smith posted, he's an Aussie, you know, Matthew Smith.
I know who he is.
Yeah, he posted an image of Rome, and I think he was testing people. He says, if anyone knows what this is, I want to be your friend. And I wrote, Rome? Everyone else was like, oh, it's a pegboard. But Rome has, Notion have just done an update themselves, but Rome have just got this crazy mind map. And it's basically his mind map of all his ideas and thoughts. But yeah, certainly helps me to have them in one place, because I do this horrible thing where I bookmark things onto my Chrome, the top favorites.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got like a million things in there now, and I just can't find anything. I mean, again, I can go in and search words, but if the person hasn't actually set their parameters on that site properly, you never find it, because it doesn't search within.
Yep.
So yeah, so that's it. But a really good guy to follow is no, I'm gonna it's Ali Abdul. Know him?
Mm-mm.
He's a doctor.
I'm gonna have to look him up though.
He's a young doctor, and this is his channel. And he talks a lot about productivity. He showcases a lot of tools. He also does a lot of other stuff as well, but he's someone that I follow a lot. I think Aunt Pew follows him, and we've had a chat about him before, and so on and so forth. But he's got a lot of stuff on Notion that I've learned from. And another guy is so he interviews and talks to a lot of people about Notion. There's another one that's called something like Keep Productive. Yeah. This guy as well is phenomenal. And he just showcases productivity apps. So he's another one that's really, really good.
Well, I've just plugged into both of them, so thanks for the tips.
Yeah, but I mean, so that's what I do with regards to like things that you share, because I want to make sure that I can refer to them again. We've got one comment here. Performance support training has so many possible delivery types. Yeah, totally agree. It's look, the sky's the limit with this stuff, I think that this was a really interesting conversation though, Mike. I think it's something that's on a lot of people's minds, and even though this channel is about supporting learning designers, fundamentally it's about supporting learning designers. If someone's tuning in and they're from an L&D department, I'd say the message that I'd try and get across to you is a lot of learning designers are really innovative, are really driven. They are really curious. They're always trying new tools. So if you feel that you either are crap with technology, or, you just need to get on top of these things, go to your nearest, if you've got an instructional designer, learning experience designer, whatever you're calling it, go and speak to them and talk to them about different ideas. And these are the kind of conversations that they're going to have with you. I'm positive that it's going to be about this, because, there's so much more to learning than, e-learning. And like I said, it is my bread and butter, but these are the kind of things that loads of learning designers are so hungry to try and push through. It's just a lot of the time L&D is blocking it. It's just,
and even and even at that, you could probably attest that doing all these other things, even if you're just doing e-learning, is still going to make that even better.
Absolutely. Right? Yeah, absolutely. certainly, you know, and we haven't, so she's saying, so I so support your comments. Yeah. So, you know, and we haven't gone into visual design. We've only been talking about content here, but just be curious. Like Mike, he's curious. He sees these tools, and straight off the bat, his mind goes to, can someone in my network use this? Could they utilize this? Yep. Then I'm going to share it. Right. And it's just the same way. Start looking at, even if you just look at LinkedIn, look at the sponsored ads that are on there, right? That person has invested a certain amount of money to get that message across, and that's been targeted for you, right? A lot of the time. So I'd be looking at, right, what is this message? Does it make sense? How have they formatted it? Now, that is one key thing that has been put in place to grab your attention and get you to interact with. Has it worked? Could that work? Yeah. The sky's the limit, really, Mike.
Absolutely.
But I think, as always, anyone who comes onto the show and has a chat with me, you know, I want to have you back. So we'll arrange for our next topic, and you know, we'll have a chat again. But this has been great. I hope that anyone who tunes in, whether it's on replay or now, is getting something from it.
Well, I can't get back soon enough, because this is always such a treat. So thanks for letting me come on and have a chat with you. It's been fantastic.
Oh, thanks, Mike. I love you to bits, and I hope that we can chat soon. I'm sad that DevLearn is not happening, because you're my yearly hug. I get to hug you once a year at DevLearn. That's it. We're just virtually. But
it's not the same. It's not the same.
It's not the same. I mean, you know, those hugs in the expo hall, they just make me feel better.
Absolutely. Next year.
Aman says it's been amazing. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I hope next year, because but it's still going to be a great experience, DDX. So I'm looking forward to seeing what the format is, and I love the idea of being able to, you know, kind of the videos being on demand, especially because you're kind of so limited at DevLearn. You know, I want to go and see this one, but oh no, this one's going to be good too. So it's going to be good. But thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Not a problem at all. Right. Well, I will sign off and let you get back. Well, it's probably, what time is it there?
Bedtime.
Right. Well, you enjoy your evening sleep. I'm starting work. I've got a full day ahead of me. But thank you very much, Mike. I really appreciate it. And guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Questions and comments, put them in the comments below if you're on replay. And if you like the videos, like and subscribe if you haven't. And awesome job. We'll see you tomorrow. Talking to Ashley Chazon.
Good stuff.
Yeah, she's a cracker. All right, guys, we're signing off. Thank you very much for tuning in. Bye now. Bye.